Welcome everybody, this is SharePoint Patterns and Practices webcast, and this time we wanted to do something slightly different and concentrate more on the business value of SharePoint Patterns and Practices rather than deep technical knowledge or showing a demonstration of the assets which are available. So this is kind of an introduction presentation around the SharePoint PnP, covering the main topics and why you should be interested about this open source community-driven initiative. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a senior program manager from SharePoint Engineering, and with me today as a secondary speaker is Paolo. So Paolo, will you do the intros as well?
Yes, thank you, Vesa, and welcome everybody. I'm Paolo Pialorsi. I'm a senior consultant in a company of my own called psys.com, and I'm an MVP on Office Server and Services.
Thank you. So both me and Paolo actually have been in the SharePoint world for a decade already. So we started.
I would say more.
Early. Yeah, slightly more than a decade. And Paolo is also a PnP Core team member. So Paolo is one of the persons who can review the submissions within this open source community-driven initiative. Before we go to the actual content, just quickly explaining, SharePoint Patterns and Practices is a community-driven open source initiative, like mentioned, owned and coordinated by SharePoint Engineering, but we do work together with community, like MVPs like Paolo and Erwin van Hoonen and Radi and Waldek Mastercards and many others, and also non-MVPs as well. So we do have numerous open source repositories in a GitHub, and we release monthly releases of reusable components and reusable solutions. The themes are on SharePoint Framework, which is the new thing, which is going to hit GA relatively soon. Well, depends on what time you're watching this video. SharePoint add-ins, Microsoft Graph, Office 365 APIs. So everything what you can do in SharePoint Online, and some of these areas can be done in a SharePoint on-premises as well, if you want to align on the cloud way of doing development in on-premises. Address is AKMS, SharePoint PnP or SPPnP, and you land to our introduction page where we have humongous amount of links to all of the resources which are available. Now, let's actually concentrate on the kind of a introduction. What is the PnP, and is it actually interesting for you maybe to have a closer look what's available within the PnP? Quite often when people actually start thinking about this open source initiative, maybe the biggest fear is that, hey, is this actually used? So are the other customers and partners actually using this open source initiative or this component? So is it safe to start using them? So is it on a few customers or tenants, or is it more than that? So before we go to the actual numbers, just quickly explaining how the PnP initiative originally came to surface. So back in 2013, there was a few Microsoft internal people who started collecting learnings and patterns and practices for doing development on a SharePoint adding model, either in on-premises or SharePoint Online. And this actually came to be relatively popular internally in Microsoft for internal community. So we went actually public then in 2014, first to Codeplex and then later on to the GitHub. Codeplex is an open source gallery as well. In 2015, we concentrated more on the reusability. So we introduced our PnP provisioning engine for remote provisioning, other reusable components like the time job framework and so on. And in 2016, the PnP ownership was moved from the field, so to say, or the let's say ex-Microsoft field people, to the SharePoint Engineering, because SharePoint Engineering wants to actually use the PnP as the channel to learn the right ways of doing development on top of the SharePoint. Right now, if we have a look on the latest numbers, we are recording this in the mid-February 2017. In the January 2017, we had more than 3,700 tenants using the PnP Core component or PowerShell in SharePoint Online. Obviously, for on-premises, we don't have statistics, so we don't know exactly the numbers from that side. In our GitHub repositories, we had almost 20,000 unique visitors within the past month. Within the past 2 weeks, which is a tremendous number of people as well. Within the January 2017, we had 1.3 billion HTTP requests going through the PnP Core component or the PnP PowerShell. And that's a massive number, obviously. So people are hitting actually SharePoint Online through these components. We have more than 250 unique contributors across the GitHub repositories. There's more than 200 individual samples, which are reusable components, and more polished solutions or simplistic samples showing an API usage. And one of the main capabilities in the PnP Core component, or provided through the BMP PowerShell, is also the BMP provisioning engine. And this is a templating system which can be used to extract templates and apply templates in on-premises or in SharePoint Online. In January 2017, we had 1,000 tenants using this templating engine in SharePoint Online, which is a tremendous number. So there's quite a lot of usage on these components, and when there's a lot of usage, it means that there's a lot of interest of making sure that the components are working properly as well, and if there's any issues, those issues are getting fixed relatively fast as well. Good. If we think about the PnP in general, it is really there to kickstart your customization solution. So how would I, as an example, when I start implementing any customizations to SharePoint on-premises using adding model or in the future SharePoint framework, how do you kickstart your solution? How do I actually start building these things? And we have tremendous amount of samples and patterns available in MSDN or within the GitHub repo. We provide proven practices. So if you have a look on the samples and read the stuff in MSDN, those are actually coming from the real world deployments. So people like Paolo, I used to be a field person as well. We used to actually implement the stuff together with customers to real world deployments as well. Stay current. We do release a lot of webcasts, a lot of guidance, updated guidance all the time to MSDN as well. So the BMP is also a channel to stay current on the latest on SharePoint customizations. And really the key value is to reuse the existing IP built together with community as an open source solution. So you're able to go to the GitHub and pull or use the NuGet packages within your solution, and then you get the latest and greatest from a functionality perspective, and you do not have to invest on implementing those capabilities, which is a great thing. Now,
Yes, and the fact that thousands of companies and hundreds of developers use these libraries on a daily basis in real projects make the result really, really useful and real, I would say, because we provide capabilities that are those really needed by companies to achieve their goals, to satisfy their business requirements. And that's the best way to make the goods provided by PnP better and better on a daily basis.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like mentioned on the previous slide, we do have that 250 unique contributors for all of our repositories. So there's a lot of interest of making all of this better and better and fix small issues here and there because, well, it's software development. There's always small bugs, and there's no such thing as bugless software out there. It doesn't exist. Good. So before we so that's kind of a high-level introduction on the PnP. So let's, however, have a slightly detailed look on the individual components, what we have available for you to take granted or to start using in your day-to-day deployment. So let's start by PnP Core component.
Yes, and for sure, one of the most used components is the PnP Core component, which is basically a library for developers who want to create solutions targeting SharePoint online or SharePoint on-premises, whether it is 2013 or 2016. And they can use this component, first of all, to make it easier their daily life. In fact, we do provide a bunch of extension methods and helper classes that allow developers to do easily stuff against SharePoint using just a few lines of code instead of writing every single time a bunch of lines of code to achieve their goal. And moreover, within the core component, we provide some kind of engines like the remote provisioning engine that you already mentioned, which is the one which allows people to extract a template from a site and to apply a template to another site just to move the information architecture across different environments, for example. example. So it can be used by an ISV who want to provision his own stuff onto multiple customers, or it can be used by an enterprise to move information architecture from development to staging to production environment, just to make some examples. Moreover, we do have the remote timer job framework, which allows developers to create great solutions based on timers running in the background, and which can be used both in the SharePoint Online and again in the SharePoint on-premises environment, if you like. And we also provide the Authentication Manager, which is a utility class which makes easier for developers to handle all the available authentication techniques that can be used to authenticate against SharePoint whenever they need to access the environment using the client-side object model. So in one sentence, the PnP Core component makes life easier for developers in order to speed up their development process and to let them focus on the real use cases and business cases they need to satisfy, instead of wasting their time writing tons of lines of code that have already been written by the community and made available to everybody else in the market of SharePoint developers.
And that's a great way of putting that one. And an even more simplified way of putting that one. The PnP Core component increases productivity of the developers because, like Paolo mentioned, you do not have to worry about basic code. You can actually concentrate on the business logic, and then the engines and the reusable libraries will take care of the actual hardcore coding and connectivity to SharePoint Online. Now, this is the PnP.NET Core component, which then is it's code, and you need to use code to be able to take granted of this core component. And quite often that can be challenging, or it might be challenging for some in some scenarios, and people want to have more flexible way of automating operations as well. So quite early within our journey of the PnP, we then introduced BMP PowerShell, and probably Paolo is a good person to do an intro on this one as well.
Yes, sure. The PnP PowerShell CMDlets are a rich set of CMDlets that we provide in order to do a lot of maintenance or development-oriented tasks against or targeting, again, SharePoint Online or SharePoint On-Premises 2013 and 2016. Right now, at the time of this recording, we have more than 200 CMDlets available. And just to make an example, a lot of my customers use PowerShell scripts to do exactly what I said before, so moving the information architecture from one environment to another, or from a staging environment to the production environment. And having the capability to just use a bunch of PowerShell scripting instead of having to write .NET code makes life easier for developers or for IT guys more in general to do maintenance and governance of their stuff just using PowerShell. We also know, Vesa, that there is another library for admins that want to use PowerShell targeting SharePoint Online, right?
True. There's the SharePoint Online admin PowerShell, which is published by SharePoint Engineering. And just to be clear on that one, so the SharePoint Online admin PowerShell commandlets are more for administrative operations against SharePoint Online, and they are only for SharePoint Online, like the name implies. And so you can actually assign, create site collection, you can assign licenses, and you can manipulate the tenant level settings. The PnP PowerShell commandlets are more on the content and structure management, so creating lists, creating content types, manipulating site insights of the site collection. And the SharePoint Online admin PowerShells are more on the tenant level and creation of the site collections as well. We are, by the way, kind of looking into, and this might happen in the future, looking into combining these two PowerShell commandlets, but for now, when we record the video, these are still two separate things. Good. So that's kind of the core managed code, the .NET framework-based code, and the PowerShell. The PowerShell is super powerful, like Paolo mentioned, because you can easily script operations without opening up Visual Studio. Now, quite often, however, people are more and more moving to client-side development. And in the client-side development, we typically mean development using JavaScript. So for the JavaScript, the BMP provides also a library which is simplifying access to SharePoint REST APIs. So if you actually have JavaScript-driven customizations, like SharePoint Framework client-side web parts in the SharePoint Framework side, or a classic JavaScript customizations, the BMP JavaScript core library actually makes the access or calling or getting the information from SharePoint using the REST API is super easy. And you don't have to worry about additional headers and additional gets and post messages and everything like that. All that is encapsulated inside of the BMP JavaScript core library. So it makes the development, again, easier for developers, which increases their productivity. The BMP JavaScript core library can be also used in SharePoint Online or in on-premises. So it actually is capable of understanding that it's being used in on-premises, and it is fully supported. So it does not have a requirement for SharePoint Framework, so you can use the BMP JavaScript core library also in on-premises in classic JavaScript customizations as well. Good. The next thing, so we have these reusable components and libraries and all of that, and quite often in the case of PnP, then people are asking, okay, awesome, we have a lot of these APIs available. Would you have an example or a story? How would I combine all of these patterns and learnings, and how would I then be able to see how that behaves in practice? And that is called BMP Partner Pack. And Paolo is probably, again, the best person to do an intro on this one.
Yes, so the PnP Partner Pack can be thought as a starter kit to show how you can use all of the goods that we provide as PnP all together in a unique solution that can be used as a reference solution from which you can start your own custom solutions targeting SharePoint Online and Office 365 more in general. Basically, the PnP Partner Pack is a sample solution that allows you to give to your end users the capability to create site collections or sites based on a set of templates stored and creating using the provisioning engine that we provide without being administrative users. So you give the capability to end users to create sites and site collections based on templates without any approval from an admin, which is sometimes really useful for big enterprises. Of course, if you want to include the workflow processes to approve the request to create a site, you can do that. It's a starter kit, and you can plug in your own business logic into the solution. What we do provide right now is the engine and the basic implementation of a solution that can be installed on any tenant, and we provide you instructions, detailed instructions about how to do the setup, as well as pretty soon, again, depending on when you will see this video, also the capability to do an automated setup based on a wizard tool. And so you will end up having the capability in your own tenant to allow users to manage their site and site collection. And moreover, we also provide the capability to do some really useful governance tasks, like, for example, being able to apply the same layout, the same branding to all of the sites and site collections that you have in your tenant, or having the capability to automatically update sites based on a template whenever you update that template. So it is a very, very good starter kit to see how to leverage in a real solution what we provide in PnP as a set of components. And as we said, it can be used as is, so you can simply install it and use it, or you can customize it. It is an open source effort, so you can customize, you can plug in whatever you like in the business logic and make it your own solution for your own tenant or customers.
Great, and that already actually kind of touched the one of the big areas of the BMP, which is in general the BMP Sample Gallery. So the BMP Partner Pack, no doubt, is probably the most used sample or a sample solution what we're actually providing. In general, we have close to 300 individual samples in the BMP Sample Gallery, showing simplistic scenarios and then more complex scenarios and more reusable solutions like the BMP Partner Pack. And really the key purpose of the BMP Sample Gallery, there's multiple kind of areas what we want to address with this one. The most simplistic thing is to show how API calls can be done and which are the API calls to use, for example, when you're configuring the let's say configuration settings of an individual site. It also shows how to use the PnP Core component in many of the scenarios. It also combines additional other scenarios as well. So there's quite a lot of reusable solutions which you can look into as a starting point for your own implementation as well. Many of these samples are not actually meant to be used as such in the production. They're there to give you, let's say, inspiration and direction as a pattern. Hey, this is how I can achieve the following objective. And then you can actually take that pattern and a sample and mold that to be your own implementation. That's really the key objective of the BMP Sample Gallery. Anything what you want to relate it on the sample gallery, Paolo, from your side?
No, I would just say that whenever you need to do something before trying to write your own solution, give it a try, have a look at the gallery and see if there is already a solution that you can take inspiration from in order to, again, be faster and be focused on your real goal, which is not writing a bunch of code, but just using the technology for your own final goal.
Absolutely. That's a good point. Always have a look on here first before you start banging your head against the wall on trying to figure out how things are actually working, because most likely there is a sample showing how to make things happen. Good. Just kind of before we close up the webcast, and this, like mentioned when we started the webcast, this is really meant to be a high-level description of the PnP and what is provided and how PnP can be used. We do have basically 4 different customer evidence or customer stories. So Volvo Cars has a Microsoft evidence story around using the PnP and the BMP guidance within their enterprise deployment. So that's from a customer perspective. In the Volvo Cars side, they were doing quite a lot of development and designing of their solutions by themselves. So they used the BMP learnings and patterns within their deployment when they were doing customizations to SharePoint Online. The second one on the list is the Value intranet from Blue Meteor, which is a reusable intranet solution, a modular intranet solution built on top of the BMP thinking as well. So the Value intranet is using a lot of the BMP patterns and practices to have their existing own service and a reusable and modular offering, which they are then selling through their partners and directly to the customers as well. Solvion actually has taken the similar kind of approach as with the BMP Partner Pack, but they have completely modified and designed their own UIs for the management layer for providing that self-service site collection and site management experience for end users. The Solvion story is actually pretty cool. They do have a super good-looking UIs within their offering, and then they use the BMP provisioning engine to provide a consistent templates across the sites and site collections which are created within a customer tenant. They do not have kind of a centralized service. They are actually using the BMP patterns and their existing solution as a starting point for all of the customer deployments, which is a wise approach as well. Expert Insight, they took more on the approach of taking the BMP Partner Pack and then modifying the BMP Partner Pack based on the customer requirements. So their solution, and we do have a video on that one available as well through the BMP YouTube channel, is to actually modify the existing BMP Partner Pack based on the business requirements from a customer and then release that for the customer through their own channels as well. So four different scenarios, slightly different approach, but these are good scenarios and good, let's say, evidence or stories which you can have a more closer look from the internet on how people are using the BMP in practice. But I think that sums up our webcast for this time. So like we mentioned when we started the webcast, this is going to be relatively high level, and really the purpose of this webcast was to have a relatively quick walkthrough on the purpose of the BMP and also what's the value and the business value of the BMP. So what is the benefits out of using the BMP? And in a single word, it probably would be to increase the productivity of the people who are doing customizations towards SharePoint Online by providing consistency, by providing reusable components and reusable elements, and also giving guidance and patterns which are actually recommended for SharePoint Online and on-premises as well. Now, Paolo, anything else what you want to kind of
No, totally agree with what we said, and we do provide samples to show you how to do stuff and how to do stuff in the right way.
Yes, so. Absolutely. And keep on watching whatever we are releasing from PnP's side. So we do have monthly community calls, bi-weekly webcasts, technical webcasts as well. There's a lot of new samples coming up all the time. We'll update our MSD and guidance and so on. So we are looking forward from hearing you around your feedback and any specific needs what you might have towards SharePoint development in SharePoint Online or in on-premises. But thank you for watching. Thank you, Paolo, for joining me on this one. And we'll come up with a new webcast sooner or later. Thank you.